Milwaukee could have just killed the corded sander market with their brand new cordless M12 Sanders. We're fixing to put these through the test and find out, can they replace a corded sander in your shop? I bought all the sanders you see today with my own money. This video is not sponsored. There are links to all of this stuff in the description, the pinned comment, and that shop button right here on YouTube if you want to check them out for yourself. I picked up both versions of the 6-inch. There is 2 stroke rates, which we'll talk about, but these are both 6-inch sanders, and out of the box you get the sander. Each of these do come with a soft pad, but these are for stick-on or adhesive-backed film paper or sandpaper because, again, slick, which is a nice option to have if you like that film-backed paper, which 3M makes some that is fantastic. You also get dust collection parts, and for some reason they come with 2 adapters that are exactly the same that you just bolt onto the back of the sander. And then, of course, I got one with a battery and a charger, which is a 5.0 XC battery, which is, I think, is going to be great. We'll test it and see. And then the other one I just got bare tool. Strangely enough, neither one of these come with a dust bag. I actually picked up the M18 Sander at the same time, the 5-inch, just to kind of compare it. It does come with a dust bag, but these do not. I find that very strange. I don't know why they would not have a dust bag on a portable sander. But if you do have a dust bag from the M18, it will fit. So weird, in fact, I might should just double check, make sure I didn't miss it. Hey, there's an extra battery. I missed. Good thing I looked. But alas, no dust bag. It's very disappointing. I'm not gonna need it because I'm gonna use dust collection, but I still think they should have included a dust bag with these. And the second battery is a M18 2.5 amp hour, so a smaller battery, which does make these absolutely so lightweight. Man, just impressive weight here. Very comfortable. So the reason they include 2 dust ports is, one you can attach for the dust collection to go to the left of the sander, one goes to the right of the sander, just depending on your preference. So that's why there's 2 in the box. So it pays to read the manual. All right, first power up on either one of these. I'm gonna turn them on at the same time. I want to kind of get an impression on what I think as far as vibration goes on each one of these. I've dialed them up all the way to full speed. First power up, here we go. Golly, absolutely just butter smooth. That's, for a sander, that is absolutely impressive. Absolutely impressive. I can tell no difference in vibration on either stroke rate. Now, talking about stroke rate here, we have a 3/32 and a 3/16. If you need that broken down into millimeters, 2.5 millimeter or 5 millimeter stroke rate. And what that means is the higher the stroke rate, the more aggressive sanding you're going to get. So the lower stroke rates are going to be good for veneers, aka plywood and things like that. If you're sanding a little bit on that, or finishes, right? So if you're sanding some of your finishes down, you'll probably want the 2.5. If you're making cutting boards, outdoor furniture, anything like that, tabletops, then the higher stroke rate might be where you want to go. That's awesome. That is sick. Now, to give you a visual representation on the difference in those stroke rates, we got the 3/32 and the 3/16 inch. I'm gonna put a black dot with a Sharpie on there. I'm gonna hold the pad, press the button, and you'll see that the 5 millimeters is a bigger circle versus the 2.5 millimeter. As you can see, it's literally half the stroke rate. So you can tell that it's a finer stroke. Now, I will say the 5 millimeter stroke is much harder to hold. I even sanded my thumb a little bit. It's burning a little bit. It was much harder to hold that pad versus the other one. So I feel like we're getting a little bit more power here as well, but it may just be the orbit is harder to hold. So the pad that comes pre-installed is the hook and loop pad, and it's pretty grippy here. Like, it's pretty grippy. So that's a good hook and loop pad. And then the other one is just a firm back or a slick pad for that adhesive, but it is the soft pad. You get the firm pad that is pre-installed. And the way you uninstall that, it's pretty cool. They have this little lever on the side that you just push down and it pops out. And then that's gonna lock this so that you can take on and off the pads. Now there is a power button on the top here. That's where you power this on. If this is not on, this switch will not activate, so you can turn that power off so you can change the disc or the sanding pads, anything like that. And then, of course, you just push that button, and those 4 dots give you the battery level. Now, these are brushless motors, and they're variable speed, and they go from 3,200 RPMs all the way up to 12,000 RPMs. So it should be spinning fast enough to do what any task you're going to want to do. Not only can you use these for woodworking, they're actually marketing them to auto body as well. So if you're sanding body filler and things like that, you could use it for that too. This thing is smooth. First 20-30 seconds of sanding with this thing, immediately I noticed how smooth it was. Just no vibration at all. That's impressive. Low vibration. Butter smooth. But we are seeing a lot of dust here with this dust bag connected. Dust collection kind of sucks. Like a lot of dust is airborne, so it's not pulling anything into that dust bag that I could tell. So I'm gonna hook up dust extraction and we'll get into the debate on if you have to put a dust extractor on it, should you even worry about having a cordless sander. We'll talk about that later. They do include this adapter, which is amazing, so that you can hook up your dust collection hoses. One of the main questions I've already got about these sanders is the battery life. So I'm gonna test the battery life of this 5 amp hour battery, and we can see that it is fully charged. I just pulled it off the charger. And then also we're gonna test the 2.5 amp hour battery to see which or how much time you get out of each. Now, depending on which sander you get is depending on the battery life too, because the 5mm gets less battery life than the 2.5mm, and that makes sense because it's working harder. So you may want to take that into consideration if battery life means something to you, but just from initial impressions, I think the 5mm is going to be better for woodworking in general. I hate sanding, so I'm doing this for you. The 2.5 amp hour battery is also fully charged. So the 5.0 amp hour battery, I got about 16.5 minutes, a little less than that actually, so we'll call it 16 minutes of sanding, and that was non-stop sanding on this piece of white oak using 180 grit sandpaper. The main thing I noticed is my hand has zero tingling, like there is almost no vibration in this sander, and it is absolutely amazing. You can tell it the instant you push the switch down. Another thing I noticed is it's not getting hot. It's warm, just slightly warm to the touch, and when you use the thermal imager, you'll see that it's about 100 degrees at the hottest point, maybe just a little bit over that, and 100 degrees to the touch is not excessively hot. Like you're not burning your hand. You can keep it there forever, I guess, and it won't burn you at all. But a fantastic thing to see here is when you turn that sander up and you put the thermal imager on the sanding pad, we're looking at in the 70s, mid to high 70 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no heat on the bottom of this thing. I was using the dust extractor, but that means the sandpaper is going to last longer. Because if you don't know, heat is the enemy of your sandpaper and sanding, because it'll make things cake up and bake onto your sandpaper and just cause a mess. And I love to see, or I'm glad to see here, that this heat is not building up or it's not getting hot on the bottom of the sander. Now you also may notice while I was sanding, I was reaching back and touching or holding on to this toolbox because it was shocking me. I was getting a lot of static buildup in my dust hose, which is supposed to be anti-static. Festool is supposed to be anti-static. But what I think is going on here is the tool itself, because it's a cordless tool, it's not powered through my dust extractor. I'm getting some static buildup there, and it's kind of common on some of these sanders I've seen like this, but just be aware, it could be a little tingly here and there. Now, you would think the 2.5 amp hour battery would last half the time, so 8 minutes. We'll see. Then I tested the 2.5 amp hour battery, and I thought I would probably get about half of the battery life, because this is 2.5 amp hours. The other one's 5 amp hours, so it makes sense that this little battery would have gotten half. But to my surprise, we're getting 12 minutes, give or take, out of this little battery. And what I found very interesting out of both the 2.5 and the 5 is I felt no reduction in power at all until the sander stopped working, and then it just stops and the light starts flashing, letting you know the battery has been drained. So almost 30 minutes worth of batteries with these two batteries that are included in this kit for a cordless sander on this little M12 platform. To me, that's impressive. Now, if it was an 18 volt or a 20 volt platform like Milwaukee's M18, DeWALT, Rigid, Ryobi, like those should be getting much more battery life out of your cordless sanders. But these little M12s, still impressed. And while I know a lot of people will push back and say, well, only 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes per battery, like it's not enough time to sand large projects. No, it's not. And you shouldn't be using a cordless sander on a large tabletop, like a dining table or something like that. You would probably be better off with a corded sander. But for small products like cutting boards, charcuterie boards, end tables, even coffee tables, outdoor furniture, like this is a perfect little sander for the shop, in my opinion. but I also have corded sanders should I need those. So it's maybe one of those you pick up secondary. The 2.5mm sander battery life is much, much improved. I was really getting tired of sanding. It was taking so long. I was like, good gravy, when is this 5 amp hour battery ever gonna go out? And at 28 minutes-ish, it finally went dead. And that's a pretty good amount of time for a battery-powered sander. Again, this is a 2.5mm sander, so if you were just wanting to use this for, say, a final finish, maybe the 220 grit, 320 grit or above, getting that nice butter smooth finish right before you put that final finish on, this might be the perfect sander for your shop. Almost 30 minutes of battery life, not bad for 6-inch sander. Don't 6-inch sander, 6 inches sander.
That's impossible.
6 inches.
30 minutes. Now this is where things get very, very interesting if you're in or want to get into the Milwaukee M12 system.
I'm in the system.
Over the last couple of years, Milwaukee has really focused or paid more attention to us woodworkers than any other brand in my opinion. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. A couple of years ago, they come out with this. This is their orbital detail sander, and it's one of the better sanders out there for specific purposes. And what I use it for is to get up into corners and small trays, things like that. It is absolutely perfect. Comes with a little interface pad so that you don't have to worry about messing up your roundovers. I use this thing all the time. Probably one of my more used sanders other than my Festool. Now what I've loved about this is how portable and just useful it is. And a lot of people try to compare this to a multi-tool with a sanding pad. They're two different things. This oscillates in a circle, whereas a multi-tool just vibrates side to side. So you're getting a better finish. In other words, if you're gonna apply stain, paints, things like that, you're gonna get a better surface with this versus just a side to side action. Then they followed it up about a year later with this, a little 3-inch orbital sander. Now a sander this size from most other companies that's cordless, Mirka, would cost you about $700. So Milwaukee comes in at almost half that price, or maybe even a little less if I remember right. But this is a perfect little sander for small trays, small parts. Like it's just a great all-around sander, and it is also a random orbit sander. I absolutely love this little sander. When you pair these two together, they're awesome. Now you can get either and or the 2.5 and 5mm 6-inch sanders. And this is where I think a lot of people might not be thinking about this too much, because these are 6-inch sanders, but versus a 5-inch sander, you're getting about 40% more surface area that you're sanding, so you're gonna spend less time actually sanding your projects, which means even though the 5 amp hour battery is only giving you 16 or so minutes, you're still sanding more area with that 6-inch disc. And for giggles, I did buy the M18 sander because I was really impressed with the rigid sander that I reviewed not too long ago. It's a fantastic little sander. So I thought, man, the M18 will probably be just as nice. Not this version. I don't know if there's another version that I'm missing, but it's okay. Like, it's a nice little sander. But when I literally just got through using the M12, then I grabbed the M18 sander. This thing feels ancient and outdated, and these feel modern and very nice. So if I was deciding M18 or M12, M12 all day. And the M18 was quite a bit more vibraty than these. One of the things that has surprised me the most is the lack of vibration in these two sanders. And I'm gonna prove it to you just showing you with a glass of water. So I'm just gonna take this glass of water and just show you how much vibration there is, starting with the DeWALT. You look at the DeWALT, like you can see the vibration inside this cup with the water in there. It's just really, really shaky, and you can feel that in your hand. If you use something like these big box store style sanders like from DeWALT and others, you'll feel that in your hand. It's very, very stingy when you get through sanding, like it feels numb. It just is not a pleasant feeling. Now when you move up to something like the Festool, you get less of that vibration, especially if you're sanding for longer periods of time. This is one of my favorite sanders. This is also a 5mm stroke sander, and as you can see, we're getting quite a bit of vibration inside of this cup. However, when you move to the 5mm sander from Milwaukee, this cordless sander, you see way less vibration inside that water. And then when you step down to the 2.5mm, you can really, really see that there's very little vibration in this one, a little bit in this one, and a little bit more in the Festool, and a lot more in the DeWALT. So you can see real time, these are significantly smoother than most other sanders that I've ever used. Like by a lot. Now here's the debate. Would you get a cordless sander if you're still going to connect a hose to it anyway? I've heard this argument on track saws in the past, and it doesn't bother me on a track saw to have dust hose hooked to it. It doesn't bother me to have a cordless sander with a dust hose hooked to it. The cord is just one less thing I have to deal with. Now, do I like my Festool? I love this thing. It's awesome. It's one of the best sanders I've ever used. But I can't deny that these Milwaukees, these new Milwaukees, are equally as good. Even though this is my little sander baby. Like, I'll take care of this thing. I love it. But you know what? I have two arms for a reason. But seriously, one of the benefits of having a cordless sander is you're not tied to anything. I can take this around back and use it on the deck if I need to, if I'm building something back there. Or I could take it in the house and use it in there. Just throw a dust bag on it. Or I could just use it on the job site or taking it to and from job sites. That's one of the benefits of having these cordless tools, and I like having them around the shop. Maybe my cord doesn't reach as far. Or maybe you don't have as many power outlets in your shop as you would like. I've dealt with that for years before getting power run around the shop. Or when I started, I didn't have any power at all in the shed out back. So having options for cordless tools, especially high quality sanders like this, I think is fantastic, and it's out there for those that want to take part in it. But if you don't, get the corded, live your life, just be happy. Before we get to the things I don't like, here's some things I absolutely love about this sander. First and foremost, the weight. This is with the 2.5 amp hour battery, very well balanced and absolutely just easy to hold. The ergonomics of this thing is beautiful, y'all. When you put your hand on that sander, like, it just forms to your hand. It's just a really, really well thought out, well-made design. I absolutely love this, the way it is just, it's perfect. As far as a perfect sander can go, I think this is one of the more perfect designs out there. Now I have these style, which they're okay, but it's kind of a high center of gravity on these things. These are a low center of gravity. They're kind of more compact, more closer to the surface. I think this is just a really well-made design. I absolutely love that. I also like that I can turn the paddle switch on and off so I can flip it over. I can also use that on the bench if I wanted to as a sander, a disc style sander while the paddle's down. But you can turn that off so when you're changing out your pads or your sanding sheets, it doesn't come on. I also like that we get a 2.5 and a 5 millimeter stroke rate. You can pick which one you want. And they probably just converted me to millimeters because it is easier to say than 3/32 and 3/16. I love how anti-vibration these are. Like, they are some of the smoothest sanders I've tried. You can even literally see it with a cup of water. Like, it's just butter smooth. They just operate so well, and you're not gonna get that hand fatigue with these at all. I sanded today probably an hour and a half total with these sanders, all within minutes of each other, like very little break between. No hand fatigue at all, none, zero. Oh, and I forgot to mention dust collection is something I like. Well, I don't like. So this is a mix. I like dust collection if you have a hose hooked up. I don't like dust collection if you only have the bag. There's zero dust collection if you only have the bag. There's dust going everywhere. Nothing's going in the bag. But if you do have a hose hooked up, dust collection is as good as Festool. Equally as good, if not even better. I mean, it's awesome. Now for what I don't like. Number one, I don't like that we didn't get a bag in here, but I do like that they do give you this dust collector or dust hose adapter, so you can pretty much fit your dust hose, whether that's a shop vac hose or even the Festool dust extractor hose should fit in there. I'm glad they do that, and I'm glad they do the right and left hose adapters. That's a great idea, and nice that they include that. I thought that this angled hose adapter would also bother me, but honestly it doesn't, because of the angle that you're working at on the workbench. It just works out that it goes straight off the workbench instead of straight back and then looped around. It's actually kind of convenient. I'm also not a huge fan, well, I don't guess it matters, but they're marketing these toward the automotive market, and they're absolutely woodworking sanders. Like, I know that you can use them in the automotive market, and I know that a lot of people do, because they even have it on their packages about the doors, sanding doors or whatever, and they show car doors. But these are absolutely woodworking sanders, and I think they should market those as such. I think they're missing a huge opportunity, even though us woodworkers are probably gonna buy them anyway. I think they should also market toward us as well. I don't really like how hard it is to get the batteries in and out. Of course, they'll loosen up a little bit over time, but it can be a real pickle to get that thing out of there depending on the battery. And one little minor quip, which is all M12 tools that I've used so far do this. They have the fuel gauge or the battery gauge right there that you can see that lights up, tells you how much battery you got left. I wish that was always on. It's just LED lights. Cannot possibly pull enough power to even worry the battery at all. So I don't know why that's not always on. That way you can look down and see, okay, I've got 2 bars left. Okay, 1 bar left. I know I'm getting close to the end. And then it starts flashing when it gets closer to the end. Why isn't that always on? Like, just make that on. It's got to be a computer programming thing. Just do it. Just know it. And another thing I really don't care for is battery life. Now the 2.5mm stroke or the 2.5mm stroke, perfectly fine. 30 minutes on a 5 amp hour battery, that's perfectly acceptable. I would like to see on the 5 amp hour battery a little bit longer battery life than the 16 minutes. It's not a deal breaker, but it's one of those that you're gonna need a couple of extra batteries if you're gonna have one of these, and this is gonna be your primary sander. Just pick up a couple of extra 5 amp hour batteries. You can get those on deal quite often. And so I would just have those on hand, and that way you can keep a freshman always in there. And so if you're looking at 3 different batteries, you're looking at 45 minutes total that you could sand without stopping. And by the time you got to the 4th battery, so you got 3, by the time you rotate it around, you would already have one charged back up. I just wish it lasted a little longer. 25 minutes, 30 minutes, that would be optimal, in my opinion. But hey, it's cordless. Another thing I don't really like is the price. I can't shy away from that. Bare tool, at the time of this filming, $299. This is a 6-inch sander. This is also a high quality sander. It works very well. It's very impressive. $299, a lot of people's not gonna want to take that leap, and I completely understand that. That's a very expensive sander. That's just bare tool. If you get the combo kit that includes the 5 amp hour battery, the 2.5 amp hour battery, and the charger with the sander, you're looking at $449 at the time of this filming. Is it worth it? That's not for me to decide, that's for you. I think they're fantastic sanders. Festool sanders are expensive, Mirka sanders are expensive, Surf Prep is expensive. So there's a lot of expensive brands already out there making really high quality sanders. So I think they're in line with their pricing, especially for cordless sanders, in line with their pricing. But I would like to see them cheaper, but that's just me. But hey, Milwaukee's always going on sale. If you want to keep up with tool deals, you should check out my website, 731woodworks.com. Click on the tool deals button. I post deals there almost every day. Or you can sign up for my text alerts where I'll let you know about new tool deals. I think this again proves Milwaukee loves you more than DeWALT. I have more proof right there in that video. Click in that box, get you the big old virtual fist bump. Seriously, go watch that video. Let me know if you think Milwaukee loves you more.